Well, it's time for another Premier League preview as we look ahead to matchday 17 of the Premier League season. We also, of course, as part of that, look ahead to the big game on the South Coast as we travel to Bournemouth with Luton Town. We'll talk about how both sides played last weekend in pretty admirable performances but very different results, and give our prediction for what's going to happen this time out, where I'm hoping the 8-hour round trip will be worth it. We'll also do our quickfire Premier League predictions for all of the 10 fixtures. And as always, I'll encourage you to do the same down in the comments. Let me know your score predictions for this weekend. And if you beat or match mine, you will get a shout out in the next recap for next weekend's fixtures. But for now, we're going to look ahead to Bournemouth versus Luton Town. Two sides that have played a lot and have got recent history together in various divisions of the EFL, but not in the Premier League. If you go back to 2008 and the summer of 2008, just over 15 years ago, both of these sides started the season in heavy negative points in League Two. Luton, of course, on the -30 that ended up sending them down, and Bournemouth alongside Rotherham on -17. And to be fair, a pretty remarkable story that all three sides are now fighting in the top two tiers of English football. Bournemouth and Luton now go head-to-head in the Premier League, and the two sides have had very differing recent runs. Bournemouth have produced results after a very slow start, and Luton have put in some admirable displays against the top sides in the division, but not come out with much to show for it. So looking ahead to this one, we've got to look back. Let's start with Bournemouth's win at Manchester United, just so I don't ignore it, because I know I will get talking about Luton and probably go on for a bit longer. What a performance tactically. I had my doubts about Iriola, even up to the last game, but the way they set up tactically to take advantage of United's weaknesses, to be fair, it was pretty similar to what Luton tried, but they had a bit more of a ruthless edge on the counter, and they were absolutely phenomenal going forward. They looked a threat every time they broke. Yes, they faced loads of shots from United, but they weren't really under any real threat. They weren't great chances. They had a good tactical shape. They kept Manchester United in front of them, and largely restricted them to probably quarter chances, not even half ones. But the way they dealt with United playing out from the back, the way they pressed them through the middle of the park and took advantage of that little brittle underbelly United have got, was absolutely brilliant. So we know, given that performance and the recent results of Bournemouth, this is not going to be easy. There have been some pretty titanic battles with the two over recent seasons. I go back to the year Bournemouth came up, where we beat them 3-2 in January at Kenilworth Road. That last second Cal Naismith goal, the Nathan Jones run down the touchline. We had a big 1-0 there as well recently, but they've given us a couple of humblings too. So this game just bodes pretty well. Two clubs that, if you take away the odd idiot bits of the fan base, have got huge mutual respect for each other. Lots of well wishes from both. And of course, two clubs that have had similar criticisms in recent years for being the small boys that shouldn't be there. But both of them coming back from massive adversity, as we mentioned 15 years ago, is a cracking story that they're playing each other in the Premier League. With that in mind though, let's have a look back at Luton last weekend, because my word, did they give the champions a bit of a run for their money. Took the lead on the stroke of half time with a really well constructed counter-attacking goal. Take away the fact it wasn't from an attacking corner for the opposition, had very similar hallmarks to the Liverpool goal and one of the Palace ones. Picking the ball up deep, Barkley taking apart a world-class midfield, and then in wide areas, what a delivery from Townsend. The reason a player like him was signed. And Adebayo, he's been so impressive in recent weeks and continues to look a real goal-scoring threat in the Premier League. So a wonderful goal. Unfortunately, Luton couldn't quite hold on. It was, though, more important perhaps to see players returning. Nakamba back in the team, Lockyer back in the team, albeit at the expense of Osho, who had to have a week off. Lokonga coming back off the bench, and a couple of others looking sharper and fitter as well. It is all starting to look a bit more promising for Luton. While the injuries have been talked about for the big boys, it has been a case that Luton have had quite a lot, and it's not really got a mention. But even if you look at Clark building fitness, Mads Anderson being back on the bench, there's just a sign that we're starting to get the squad together, and hopefully that will bode well for the rest of the season. We were having this discussion last week with Luton. The next three away games, I know Bournemouth are in form now, but after that, it's the two fellow promoted clubs in Burnley and Sheffield United. They're going to be huge in determining Luton's season. You look to the second half of the year, we face a lot of bottom half sides at home. We've got a lot of the tough big boys out the way at Kenilworth Road. And it is an opportunity, if we can create that same atmosphere we have for the games like Liverpool, that we might then be able to push on and try and get on a little run, as Bournemouth have done themselves in recent weeks. But a really encouraging display. I think personally, probably one of the best of the season against an incredibly good City team. In the end, just fell short, but lots of positive signs. Cabore's going to come back in this weekend after being ineligible against his parent club. And I asked the same question I've asked probably twice this year. On both occasions, it hasn't happened. Will Luton adjust their shape now? Because with Lokonga coming back and Nakamba as well, and with the fact that Bournemouth have got such a central threat, Lewis Cook was fantastic against United and looks a real good player in the base of that team. Philip Billing is always producing goals from midfield, and there's bundles of talent in there. I do wonder if Luton are going to go for the three in midfield this time. And of course, with options like Pelly and Clark as well, there's a bundle of experience in there if it's needed. But then you look at where our threat's been in recent games and where we've created all of our goals, and it's come from those wide areas. So it's possible that it will still be Townsend and maybe Jacob Brown, who was, let's be fair, slightly lucky not to be sent off. And also Talif Chong and hopefully a Chio Ogbene return knocking on the door. But Luton Town are doing everything we've asked. They've been competitive against some of the best teams in the league. But these are the games they've got to get up for. One of the poorer recent performances was against Brentford, a game that you might look at and target as a chance to pick up a point or three. And this game is maybe one of those that are similar, despite Bournemouth's excellent recent run. So whether or not Luton can turn up for the games that matter now, probably going to be the big question in terms of our survival, certainly when it comes to the next three away games. For me, this game is going to be pretty close. It always is when Bournemouth play Luton, no matter what recent form the two teams have been in. And you know what? I want a raw heart overhead this time. I do genuinely think that Bournemouth are probably favourites, and I think I'd be fair to say that given their recent runs. But partly because it's an 8-hour round trip, partly because we need to win the game, I'm just going to go for it. And I apologise in advance. I'm going to go for Luton to win by 3-2. I think it's going to be a thriller, not the 1-0s we're used to seeing. I'm going for the same outcome, maybe in the same fashion as the one a couple of years ago. But it's nothing against Bournemouth. In all seriousness, they've had a brilliant year. I hope they're going to do well. Because it's great that the small boys are proving the Premier League wrong and annoying so many of the other fan bases. So well done to Bournemouth for their recent run. Well done for Iriola proving me wrong. And hopefully for Luton Town, 3 points on the road to maybe just get the little run started over the festive period. Because the two home games against Newcastle and Chelsea, they might be winnable given their recent form. With that out of the way though, let's move on to the rest of the weekend fixtures and give our predictions for the whole of matchday 17. And that includes having a quick recap of what happened last weekend. The weekend of shocks, as it turned out to be, because Luton almost produced one, Bournemouth did produce one, Sheffield United got a rare win, Burnley picked up a point thanks to a brilliant James Trafford display. And as a result of all of those, and Fulham's second consecutive 5-0 win, we only picked up 7 points overall in matchday 16. The perfect score for Wolves Forest was important, and I also got the correct outcomes for Liverpool, Aston Villa, Manchester City and Spurs winning. But you guys in the comments struggled as much as me. We all had a shocker because of all of the surprise results. And in the end, just 2 of you managed to match my score with no one getting more than 7 points overall. Chris and Steve were the 2 people level. Steve, 7 correct outcomes but no perfect score. And Chris, maybe slightly fortunate but 2 perfect score predictions. Only got 3 of the outcomes right, but that's all you needed, as you two both joined me on 7 points. But let's get ahead to matchday 17, where we've all got a chance to redeem ourselves. Let me know your predictions down in the comments as I give you mine for this weekend's action. I've potentially thrown away 3 with the Luton game because, you know, I'm being ambitious and going heart over head. Not something I often do on this channel. But for the rest of the games, I've gone for Nottingham Forest to be narrowly beaten 2-1 at home by Spurs. I was so tempted to go for 2-2, and Forest were much better away at Wolves, but Spurs looked great at home to Newcastle. They're just starting to get a couple of players back and back in form. We know that I've gone for Luton to win 3-2, heart over head I know. I've gone for Chelsea to beat Sheffield United 3-0. Another one of those results that no one's expecting now. Chelsea have had a couple of absolute stinkers. Sheffield United were brilliant at home to Brentford. But Chelsea, although they've been very poor this season, have dealt with the promoted sides pretty well. They battered Burnley and they beat us comfortably. So I'm going to bank on the same again against United. I've gone for Manchester City to beat Palace 2-0. I think the old hoodoo is gone now. Palace have been poor for a number of weeks, albeit against Liverpool, slightly unfortunate with the manner of the red card. But City, while they've not been purring, they've not been brilliant, they will do enough to win in my opinion. Newcastle United at home to Fulham. They'll be thrilled to be back at St James's. I am recording this on Wednesday before Newcastle and City's Champions League games, so I can't factor those in. But I am going to go for Newcastle to edge this, despite Fulham's 2 brilliant 5-0 wins last week. Newcastle at home formidable, 1 or 2 players just starting to come back, so I'm going to go for them to pip it by 2-1. Burnley v Everton, the Sean Dyche derby, that's going to be a huge game. Everton at the moment, though, they just look formidable. So good defensively. Burnley have had a few games this season where teams have sat deep and they've been able to put pressure on, but not find that opening. I'm going to go for the same again, and then maybe to concede a set piece or get caught playing out, and Everton to win by 1-0. Arsenal at home to Brighton. Many will expect it to be close. Arsenal rested everyone in the Champions League bar the centre-halves. And to be fair, they put up a better fight at Villa than Manchester City did, but neither of them looked particularly great. I just think that Brighton will press them and it will suit Arsenal down to the ground. Brighton a bigger game on Thursday night, so Arsenal by 4-1. Brentford and Villa, I can't split them. I've gone 1 apiece. Brentford normally fairly solid at home. Villa, not the best on the road, but have been in brilliant form. Again, they're in action on Thursday night, but I'm going to go for Brentford and Villa to draw 1-1. West Ham and Wolves, I didn't know what to do. Wolves away from home are not the most fluent goal scorers. West Ham United have had a tough week. They've got a big game on Thursday night as well. I just feel like this is going to peter out. West Ham's focus will be not to concede after what happened last weekend, and Wolves are always a solid side. So I'm going to go for 0-0 in the Craig Dawson derby there. And the final game, Liverpool v United. I'm not going to go for a repeat of last year's score, and I do think United are very soft in the middle, where Liverpool have massively improved this summer. But I'm going to go for a comfortable win rather than a spectacular one, with Liverpool to beat Manchester United by 3-1 on Super Sunday. So those are my predictions for the Premier League weekend. Do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know yours in the comments as well. Apologies for Bournemouth fans because I let my heart rule my head, but I'm sure you can forgive me in the circumstances. If you're making a trip down on Saturday, I hope you enjoy it. If you're at any of the other games, enjoy them too. In the meantime, though, it's manager specials galore in the Championship. We had our latest one with Rotherham yesterday. That is up in the eye above. We'll be back with Championship predictions tomorrow. And spoiler alert, the first half of my midweek results are spectacular. If you enjoyed this one though, do chuck a thumbs up on it. And if you want to stay up to date with everything across the channel, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Thank you very much for your incredible support for yet another week of predictions. And I'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon as we look ahead to the weekend of Championship action.